Well, I'd like to welcome everybody here and just say what an honor it is to be able to speak to you today, and that you guys have all shown up and that you're planning something. And 3 years ago, Ann and I, were thinking about a trip. 3 years ago, we were at a Meet, Play, and Go event. 3 years ago, we were in this room listening to this same event. And we had the exact same fears, concerns, trepidations as you. If you heard us talk earlier, you can probably get a sense of that. And that day, we went home, sat around our kitchen table, took out the map, and everything became a reality. We were doing this trip, and hopefully you guys leave with that same confidence. And we're here now, 2 years later. We're on a 2-year RTW, which I know everybody won't be, but you never know. And 33 countries later, we learned so many things about travel and how to do it safely, organically, cheaply. We love passing on those tips when we can make somebody's trip cheaper and hence longer. And when Sherry asked us to speak, we were like, no doubt, we are going to be there and just drop as much knowledge as we can. We normally, like Sherry said before, we do coaching sessions, so it's a lot longer than this, but we're going to try and condense all our power stuff into a quick 20 minutes here. So yeah.
So these are the meaty, dense topics are all important stuff. To talk about where you're going, all these things that are like insurance, lodging, and transportation comes down to your route. If you're going for a longer trip, perhaps you don't need to plan everything. If you're trying to circumnavigate the globe in 3 months, and you might need to book more in advance. But here are different strategies to help you plan the most affordable, efficient, safe, and fabulous trip. So travel insurance. Now, what is it basically? It's in case of emergencies, and emergencies in any form, be it illness to injury, to your trip gets canceled, to your luggage gets stolen. It's kind of the God forbids, and then being able to take you back to your home country if disaster strikes. So handling that transportation as well. When you're trying to think about travel insurance, think about what are your needs? Do you have a lot of prescriptions that you need to make sure are filled? Do you have any pre-existing conditions? Do you know you're going to be coming home for a long period of time and are afraid of that lapse of travel? Because travel insurance won't cover you in your home country beyond 100 miles outside of your home. So asking all these questions, also thinking about what existing coverage do you have. Maybe your credit cards actually cover you pretty well for certain things. Maybe you have homeowners insurance that's can cover your jewelry, and do all of those steps, and then we'll get into what plans could be a fit for you. You want to look for what countries are covered. They should be all the ones you're going to. You want a high coverage limit, so you don't hit with fees, even if they cover a little bit. Injury and illness, theft, loss, damage, cancellations for a trip, for a hotel, for a tour, evacuations. That's anything from, if you fall off a cliff and they're going to pick you up, to, maybe there's a disaster in that country and you need to get out. And then also 24-hour support, because you don't know what time zone you're going to be on. Someone should be there to pick up the phone and answer your questions.
How do we pick insurance so that we can do stuff like that? That's over in Zambia, dropping off a little gorge swing. So, how did we pick our travel insurance? There's a lot of options out there, so we figured when we were going on our trip, we would reach out to the travel community and find people who'd done long-term trips or were currently on them, and we asked them what coverage they had and what they'd recommend. Pretty much overwhelming support or votes were for World Nomads. And we chose them for our travel insurance for a lot of reasons. They were affordable. It was around $100 a day per person, or $100 a month. Sorry, that would be expensive. You'd have to add that to your budget. So it was $100 a month per person, and it covered things like lost articles, evacuation, health concerns abroad, and it was really easy to renew. We started our trip. It was going to be a year. We got really good at budgeting. It turned into a year and a half. We got even better. It turned into 2 years, and each time it was just 15 minutes at a hostel, pop on, add time to our plan. And we went with the Explorer package, which they offer. That's a lot more things like gorge swings and hot air ballooning and scuba diving coverage, which is an extra package. But that's all within that $100 a month. And the other option there's a lot of options out there for insurance, but if you're looking to be a little more, of a nomad out there and possibly live abroad, whether it's in Europe or Asia or Africa or anywhere really, there's long-term health plans. GeoBlue is one that's through Blue Cross, and they have a network of doctors around the world that it's a little bit more of your physicals and checkups. And if you have questions on that, I know Sherry, she uses GeoBlue. She can answer those topics, and we can talk more about World Nomad or any other questions you have. So for personal articles, we use State Farm. Our local State Farm agent, it was $75 for a year of coverage for $8,000 of camera and computer equipment with zero deductible. So even though World Nomads covered $3,000, we figured we'd layer on a little bit extra just to have a backup. And those plans will change whether you're in New York or PA or California, but you can call around and get a good quote for your personal items while you're traveling. And then there's a lot of blogs and sites out there. One that we really like and used before we left was Boots and All. They have a hotline, not only for flights but also for insurance, that you can call up, and whether you book with them or not, just call up. I think the guy's name is Dave there, and he'll just talk your ear off about insurance and answer all your questions and help facilitate that as well.
And so getting healthy for the road and staying healthy on the road. We would work out with bananas or whatever was laying around. But start by visiting your primary doctor. Tell him about or her about your trip, all your concerns, lay it all out there in terms so you can have that conversation about prescriptions to vaccines. So starting with vaccines, get as many for free as you can from that primary doctor. He can get all your stuff up to date from Hep A, Hep B, tetanus. Those are pretty standard travel shots, and that should be covered within your primary care. And for what he cannot, he will pass you on to get a referral for a travel doctor. And then they cover the more exotic stuff like Japanese encephalitis, yellow fever, but are actually pretty necessary for traveling to Africa and Asia. And then, so per that conversation about prescriptions, think about what's really, ask yourself this question for getting healthy in general is, how can I dial myself in to be as nimble and independent and safe and healthy as possible? If you have prescriptions, come up with a plan with your doctor. Perhaps it's, having stockpiling stash in with your mom and in case emergency strikes, or you having extra in a separate bag, so if one gets stolen, you have extra. Or similar to that global insurance plan, HDC, they can ship you prescriptions if that is a real concern. Now, for me, my only real prescription was birth control. So I was like, what can I do about this? And what will happen if my bag gets stolen? I decided to get an IUD. That was a great choice for me long term. I was also very worried about my contact lenses. I won't be able to see if my bag gets stolen. What on earth will I do? I got LASIK eye surgery. So anything you feel comfortable doing that will, in this process, to also just feeling that you're going to be as independent and worry-free on the road in case the unforeseeable of your bags get stolen.
That's insurance. Fun stuff, transportation. Doesn't sound fun, but it's awesome. And you're going to be doing it a lot on your trip because you got to get from place to place. So you got to embrace it and realize, which we never thought about going into our trip, that it was going to be some of the most organic and beautiful experiences of our trip was getting from place to place. Because nobody's bucket list is get stuck at rest stop with flat tire and, eat the same meal 4 times in a row. Like, that's not on your list, but it will be afterwards because there's such fun things that happen when you're traveling, especially overland. And we'll get into overland in a little bit, but plane tickets. That's a big question that people have, not necessarily a hurdle, but it's definitely something that everyone thinks about. How am I going to afford it, and what type should I get? So in a minute, we're going to talk about the RTW ticket that you can book through one of the alliances, multi-stop tickets through AirTrex and Boots and All, buying a la carte, Skyscanner or kayak type sites, using mileage for your flights to save a lot of money, and then traveling overland, whether it's bus, train, or boat. And then it's important to find out what type of travel is right for you, and you'll learn that on the road. You don't need to know that up front, but depending on how fast you're going, your comfort level, your needs, You know, there's a lot of different solutions for you at a lot of different price points. So no matter what your budget is, you'll find a way to get around there, and it'll actually turn into some of the most fun of your trip.
So the big themes here. So an RTW ticket, when we started this process, we assumed like, oh, the around the world ticket. Everyone talks about that. You know, Star Alliance, One World, they're basically the conglomerates of airlines that let you book a 3 to 20 stop ticket over and use it over the course of a year. So that sounded like the natural choice. But as we started doing our research, we realized there were many pros and cons. Pros being, okay, this will make us really dial in our trip. We'll figure out our route and we'll have our agenda. And it's an ambitious trip anyway. This will keep us on track. Those are all great things about the RTW ticket. One that wasn't was they actually, you have to, well, one, bookings and cancellations. It's very difficult to change your route. There are fees involved, and we changed our route so many times that would have not worked at all for us. As well as we were trying to do overland and continue in a path going forward, they make you fly in and out of the same airport. So if you'd gone all around Argentina, you'd still have to go back to Buenos Aires to get out of there. So that didn't work for us per se, but if you were going on a really quick trip that was trying to cover a lot of ground, it could be really good for you. So then there's also the multi-stop ticket, which is, I think, a much more flexible option. Airtrex and Indy are great programs for that. Airtrex still comes with that support. That's a nice part about the Star Alliance is that there's someone on the phone. Airtrex also offers that. It's a lot of questions, and they can help you work through that. The idea with that is booking in chunks versus all at once. So maybe I only know as much as my South America like. Let me deal with that first and see how I feel before I book Africa. And Indy is also great because it lets you plan. It's a free tool to use, and you can figure that out on your own before you make any commitments. Book as you go. You're going to do this no matter what. That's the thing. So even if you get the RTW ticket, you don't know about that little island that you've never heard of, or that amazing festival that just came up. But these are things that are going to happen, and it probably will be cheaper to do the little ones a la carte. And tips to do that successfully: Skyscanner is really great. Also, there are budget airlines you've probably never heard of until you get into that local zone. To do that ahead of time, Google, say for example, budget airlines, Philippines. Those little Philippine airlines are not going to come up in kayak, but every small country has their small airlines, so check it that way. And then in general, 3 weeks out is a good time to get good rates and availability.
So while you're booking as you go, frequent flyer miles are a great tool, and you're never too young or too old to start collecting them, or you're never too far away from your RTW or your long trip to start collecting them. And I'm a huge proponent of them. In the 7 months leading up to our trip, between the research we did and the books and the courses that I signed up for, we saved 430,000 frequent flyer miles that we then spent on our trip around the world. And the cash savings, I calculated it before, so if anybody likes spreadsheets and wants to look, compared to buying a la carte on Skyscanner, which is the cheapest around, between the two of us, we saved $12,000 on our trip, which is a lot of countries in Asia, or a lot of months that we could have stayed and extended and did extend onto our trip because of that saving. So that's my little plug on frequent flyer miles. Is it a free lunch? No. We all know there's no free lunch. It takes work. It takes diligence. It's a certain kind of person that can be entering all this into spreadsheets and following up on things. But so that's the con, is that it does take time and it is work. The pro is that you're saving money that you can then spend on your trip. Or maybe it's your budget, you weren't able to save as much for your trip, but if you can get your flights for free, that's a big chunk of your budget saved. And you're also very flexible. So when you're using frequent flyer miles, unlike a cash ticket, 2 days before the ticket, the price doesn't shoot through the roof. You might have a few dollars more, maybe it's $50 fee instead of a $25 fee, but we booked a fair amount of our tickets the week we were flying, sometimes the day before our flight. Like when we flew from Nairobi, Kenya, into Kathmandu, we booked it the day before. And we were flexible, so we could have stayed a few extra days, but it was nice to get out when we wanted and not pay $1,800 for that flight. And we had it because we had that resource in our pocket. So where to begin? There's a lot of information out there and a lot to sort through. There's blogs. I can send you links to the blogs that I follow and continue to follow. There's books you can read. We do a course on it and teach people. And it's just important to, obviously, you don't want to carry balance ever. and you want to diversify your miles so you're not all heavy into one airline, because a lot of different airlines have different alliances and networks, so you want to be able to fly anybody from whatever city you're flying out of. And credit cards are just one portion of, you know, the mileage game, so it's not just all signing up for credit cards, and which doesn't hurt your credit score as much as one might think. Now, overland travel.
So, and we'd recommend overland travel as much as possible. This is where countries come alive. It's waiting at the bus stop with, you know, a Maasai warrior, and it's, you know, seeing the scenery from outside the window, eating the street snacks at the bus station. It's all of this that cannot be seen from going from airport to airport. Those are very sterile environments. Overland is where you meet real local people. So we would fully recommend that. Obviously, you have to still fly too, but from, you know, the chicken buses to trains to all of that, we're big proponents of that. And great about that as well is that you don't need to plan. This part you don't even worry about. You just show up in a country and you show up to the bus station. You'll find out the schedule and you'll be on your way in the same day. So no, don't stress. We took, I don't know, 300 buses. I can't even count how many buses, but it was a great way to go. Overnight buses is a great way to avoid taking flights because one, it's better for the environment to not be doing this. You're more flexible to be taking overland. And then it's also a night saved in lodging. We would take overnight buses to be like, well, that's one night that we don't have to pay for a hostel, and, you know, put an eye mask on and a pillow and you're there before you know it. So it kept us flexible and it kept us saving money.
Which leads to when you get there, when you get off the bus, how are you finding a place to stay? And I think an important thing to keep in the back of your head as you're listening to us speak and everybody else here is that you're entering a new world of travel. And it's a world of travel where you're not at your desk, your office desk, booking your 10 nights hotel and your taxi cab from the airport to that hotel and your scuba excursion, and you're not pre-booking these things. So it's a little nerve-wracking to get out of that shell and show up in a city with no place to stay, and you don't know how you're going to get there from the bus station to downtown, but it works out because everyone's going there, and there's never a lack of transportation or place for you to sleep when you get there. So that's kind of our philosophy is we show up in a town, usually, you know, early in the day if we can, and we never pre-book. There's a few times we might pre-book, but the majority, 9 times out of 10, we're not pre-booking. We show up into town, and I would usually watch the bags, and Ann would go out and scout 3 or 4 places, maybe negotiate with a little guest house owner, find a place that she was comfortable with that still saved us a lot because we weren't visiting Cambodia or Myanmar for 500 thread count sheets. We were there to have amazing experiences, so that was kind of one of our strategies, was just go as affordably as possible on lodging. And we never went without. In 675 days, we never didn't find a place. Even Koh Phi Phi, Thailand, on Christmas, New Year's, and full moon was within the same 3 days. And every single website we went to or person we called laughed at us. They were like, this has been booked for 6 months. Don't even come here. Like, you'll no chance to get there. We got off the ferry. Within 2 minutes, we had 3 different people. Like, oh, do you want to stay at my guest house or my home? Because they know everything's booked up. So they're like, oh, come stay at my home. It's $10 and I'll feed you breakfast. And we had an amazing time there. But we just went because we had such a long string of experiences positively that it's going to work out on that. So usually you get dropped off in the center where a lot of the hotels and hostels are. And booking in person is just so much better. You get to see the place, and it's cheaper because anybody with a website, it's going to be expensive, and they know they're dealing with people from the States or from Europe, and you're going to think $30 a night is an amazing deal right on the beach. But when you get there and it's 12, then you kick yourself that you just booked a 10-day, you know, trip there. So when do you book in advance? If you're arriving late at night into a city on a bus, maybe you're getting in at 10 or 2 in the morning, you'll probably want to book maybe a hostel for your first night so you can get your bearings on a city. Hostel Bookers is a good one. You know, you guys know Airbnb, although we found them to be a little bit expensive. You also want to book in advance if you can get free lodging. And we have lots of ideas. Ann's going to talk about them in a second. But if you can get free lodging, that usually takes a little more planning than, you know, 20 minutes after you get off your bus.
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of resources, so check them out for specific sites. But yeah, no cost lodging. One, it's free. That's fantastic. But really, a lot of times it was the cultural experiences that made them so worth it, and I would have paid for in the end. It was so good. Homestay.com is a site where you book with locals, and that's a really good one. But couch surfing, cannot say enough about couch surfing. Now you think like, I'm gonna be sleeping on someone's couch in a funky dorm room and I'm not interested. We had a private room most of the time. We were usually fed dinner. You got to cook together, learn about the local cuisine, hang out. Then you're taken to their favorite band that's playing that night. And it's this access that it gives you well beyond free lodging. And to do that, you have to go into it thinking that this is about community exchange and sharing cultural experiences. So it's about making a really compelling profile, telling your story, and have it be about wanting to meet those people. Because no one wants to hear, I want a free place to sleep, give me one. You know, it doesn't work like that. But I would say actually start hosting now in your hometown and see what that's like. We hosted in New York because we're like, wow, if we're going to be asking the world to host us, we should start hosting. And I can't tell you how wonderful the people that stayed with us were, and I would recommend you all do it. It's a window into the world, truly.
No matter your age, we met people.
We stayed with, couch surfing hosts that were in their 60s. Get this is a slight tangent. We stayed with a guy in New Zealand who is about 55 or so. And he said, oh, funny, I'm going to Los Angeles. Do you know anyone there? Well, I'm from there. My mom's there. Stay with my mom. He comes to LA. What's this 2 years later? My mom's staying with him in New Zealand.
It's an amazing community.
Cycle. But so then also house sitting, sorry. House sitting is another option. If you want to stick put in a certain place for a while, say, and these can go from 5 days to a year, you can get a house sitting gig. It usually comes with taking care of a pet or some kind of responsibility where you should be there and commit to it. You can't flake out and like take road trips on the side, but if you can stay in amazing homes for free, with that little caveat of signing up for a site, validating yourself, and maybe taking care of a pet. And then working for room and board. Woofing, this family here, we farmed on this Japanese farm, and it was amazing. We worked for 4 hours a day, but more so we learned about not only organic farming, but Japanese culture, and spending nights around the table with them, and learning language skills, and just sharing stories is so valuable. Other sites that do this, HelpX, Workaway, that's a whole variety of types of work beyond farming that are worth looking into for not just the free room and board, but the cultural experiences.
And that sense of community, which Ann was talking about with couch surfing and woofing, it's such a part of travel, and you're going to meet, and you're meeting today, such beautiful people, because you'll realize this when you go travel. People where you're in Thailand or Cambodia, they're going to say, Americans are such nice people, and it's because the travelers are just such passionate and caring people. And it's the same thing in this community here. Like, everybody here wants to share and help you do this, and it is a process. You're not going to come here in one day and leave tomorrow and have everything dialed in and all your fears and hurdles will be solved, but it's the first step, and it's an important step, and to know that that community is there and that we've got your back and that we're here. I mean, we're here to help in any way we can. Our contact info is over there. If anybody wants my cell phone number, just ask me afterwards. Because, we want to get people on the road. That's why we're doing Trip Coach, is because getting more people out on the road, just like it's Sherry's passion and Michaela's, like it's ours too, and we know how good it is for not only you, but just for humanity in general to get out there and travel, and we want to facilitate that every way possible. So
keep in touch with us, but in the meanwhile, questions. Did we maintain our health insurance here? Well, we knew we were going for a long period of time, but also, we were healthy individuals. We didn't have much to maintain here. It wasn't worth the money for us to keep that going. This was pre-Obamacare. But World Nomads covers enough of, it covers catastrophe, and that was enough for us. In addition to, it's so much more than healthcare. It's the stolen goods, the canceled trips, that was going to be enough.
And that now you don't, like, pre-existing conditions are no longer a thing. 10 years ago when you went, you needed insurance straight through, because if you came back and said, oh, I've got cancer, they'd be like, well, now your insurance plan is $10,000 a month, but now that's no longer. So when you come back, you can apply, and the next month you'll have coverage.
And that's it. Then we did get, the government health plan when we came home within the first month, and then we were on that, and that's actually been great.
House sitting, we know a few people who are doing entire round-the-world trips just house sitting. The pro of that, the pros of house sitting, you're staying for free, which is an underlying pro, but you're really immersing yourself in a culture. You're getting to know, the local fruit vendor and the restaurants, and you're really diving into a city. And you usually have an amazing place that has Wi-Fi and a view, and because it's somebody who has a fancy home that they want to either protect or to watch their dog while they're traveling. The downside is that you're in one city for anywhere from 1 week to 6 months, you know, and if that's the type of travel you like to do, it's a great way to immerse yourself, but you're not taking, you know, you're not in Chiang Mai and doing little 4 or 5 day trips and then just coming back once a week to check on the house. Like, they want somebody who's there. But if you're looking to immerse yourself in a city, it is a great way to travel affordably and really immerse yourself into a culture that another traveler who's just there, like us on average 3 or 4 days, it's harder to break into than if you're there for 2 weeks.
The question was, how did we find that opportunity where we worked on the farm? That specifically was woofing, which is willing workers on organic farms. And you sign up by country, usually. Some in South America, you can get like a bunch of countries. But Japan, we kind of strategically thought, well, we definitely know we want to woof. We heard amazing experiences about working on organic farms, living with families. We're like, and Japan is one of the most expensive places we're going to. That's going to be a smart one to stay for free. And also, like, sometimes can be a more closed culture, but it was a great opening into that world. So woofing, but then same, HelpX and Workaway are similar opportunities that are beyond farming.
So I think that was our last question, but like I said before, we're here. If you see us around, even if I'm talking to her, just walk over and interrupt, because we talk all the time. And we want to help you guys. So no question is too small or silly or weird or whatever. We've heard a lot, you know. So whatever we can do to help you guys, just don't be shy. Come up and we'll talk.